Browning, our board chair.
Thank you, Karen. And I'm really pleased that I've had an opportunity to be here with all of you. What a great turnout. And let me thank Jim. We are very fortunate to have a retired senior partner from McGladrey as our accountant, our financial head, managing our finances. So not to be taken for granted. He's been part of this from the beginning. And to have Mark also join us. In fact, I was giving a talk to, I guess it's graduates we both graduated from the University of Chicago, an MBA, and he came up and said, you know, I'm interested in getting involved in a not-for-profit. Is there some way I could find a way to get involved and give back? He doesn't happen to live out here. Told him about the school, and we're very fortunate to have him on the board. What I asked Karen, if I could, is just kind of, just take a few minutes, if I may, and lay the groundwork, if you will, for what she and Bruce are going to be talking about. Because this is a very exciting and important time in the history, in the very short but successful history of the school. So one of the things I've learned in climbing a lot of mountains over the years is it's always useful to turn back and look how far, instead of looking up, because you're always climbing up, to look back and see how far we've come. So I just thought, not to spend too much time on this, but how did we get started? How did we get here today? And what does this mean as we reach this very important moment in our history? So I was reflecting back on, this is 7 years ago. Charlie Davidson walked into my office. I was still the dean at the McCall Graduate School of Business then, and with Marty McCarthy, to ask if I could join in on a project. And Charlie and Marty and others, and along with a much larger family group at this point, had been involved in helping Trinity Trinity Episcopal get off the ground. And so I agreed to help. And so we started meeting, and in fact, this year executive committee meeting of the board has been meeting virtually monthly for 7 years. And we started meeting there, and once I retired from I got tired of doing the dean thing for 3 years, we started going over to St. John. But what brought us together at the time was the success that Marty and others had had at Trinity, and if we could replicate in some way, or in a different way, a Christ-centered classical education. And so it brought together those that had had experience at Trinity and those that had not. So we were very fortunate at the time. We had Charlie Davidson, who is the former CEO of J.A. Jones. We had lawyers, accountants, investment bankers, as we talked about how we could go forward to build the school. And what we did have was Jim McGall, in working with Marty McCarthy at the time, gave us the land, which was the beginning. In fact, I used to say to Marty, I think I figured this out when in growing these schools. In the beginning, there was land. But then, as we got into it, I said, I need to complete that phrase. In the beginning, there was land, and you need money, too. So all of us got, and how did I become chairman of the board? I think it was out of the room at the time, to be honest with you. It's one of those things in the back.
Just like John. Just like John.
Yeah, how are you going to feel, man? So all of us began getting on the phone and calling the people we knew on the south side of Charlotte. So it might be it was Frank Harrison, the CEO of Co-Consolidated, or it was Alan Dixon, one of the Dixon brothers who owned Harris Teeter. It was Alan Tate. It was Nick Snyder. I won't go through all the names, but trying to find individuals that we knew who would be willing to support us in founding this school. And we did get their support. So along with the members of the board and those individuals, we generated enough capital, along with one of our board members said, you know, I've got an idea. Because we were looking at where were we going to put the school. And he said, I'll bet we could borrow against the property, which we were able to do. And let me just say this, a school, a great institution, is not about the board of directors. I have, or currently serving on 11 boards of 11 publicly traded companies, 2 as a CEO, and the board doesn't run the company. You're only as good as the CEO, or in this case, as the head of school. In the case of a company, it's the employees, it's the leadership. In the case of a great school, it's the faculty, It's all of you and your children that create a great school. We were fortunate enough to find Karen, and off we went. Still meeting once a week. So we've gone from the McCall School over to St. John. Erica joined us, the first parent to come and make that drive all the way into town, into St. John, which is across, if you're not aware of it, it's across from Country Day. And then a year later, Gary joined us as the second parent. And you've heard a bit about that history. Of course, we started across the lake, and circumstances having to do with the economy, of course, made it possible for us to move into this building. We used the bulk of that almost $1 million to outfit this building for the school. We then were faced with the proposition of having to move over to the property, and we spent, all those meetings talking about how we were going to do that, and circumstances, again, and the difficult part of the economy made it possible for us to buy this building and the adjacent land. And so here we are today, having gone from 25 to 50 to 100 to 143. Actually, all those forecasts that we used to do have kind of held up well. And I think it's frankly very remarkable, as Jim said, that this institution is self-sustaining as we go forward. That is no small matter that we've reached that point. And so what got us to this are those who, on the south side of Charlotte, if you will, if I could use that expression, that supported us financially, and the board of directors. But we're now reaching a critical stage as we go forward, and you'll hear about it. And Bruce has been kind enough to come around and talk to all of us, because this next phase is critical in our continued growth. And what you're seeing in the case of the senior members of the board of directors is that we're not in the same position that we were before in providing that additional extra support, and we can't go back to the individuals that helped get us to this point. So what you're going to hear is, at this particular important phase, as we look to the friends, the parents, and the associates of this school to help us get to the next phase. And that doesn't mean anybody's walking away. That doesn't mean we haven't made financial commitments, because we have. But we can't rely on those resources that got us up to this point. We need to look forward in a different way and more engagement. One of the things I've talked about is that I jokingly call the senior members of us the Gray Legion on the board, and that it's important over time to find individuals who care about this institution, that can support it, and have the time and the effort to become part of the board of trustees. We don't run the business. We are here to support. We're only as good as Karen, the faculty, and all of you, but we do spend an inordinate amount of time in helping this institution grow. I know, Charlie, I don't know how many trips you've made with Karen and checking out taking advantage of your remarkable experience and background to make sure that these buildings are worth the investment, are reliable, and the right place to have your children. So anyway, enough of that. I just really appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk with all of you. I can tell you on the board love this school. We love the opportunity that Karen has provided, even back at giving us presentations, even back at St. John, and the excitement that generates on our part, and fulfilling the vision that we laid out on the board, really not sure how that would ever come to fruition. So this is an exciting time. We've got some great opportunities in front of us that you'll hear about as this institution continues to grow. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Bruce, right?
And Charlie.
We really have some great opportunities. Charlie will be up here. Charlie. I'm the fundraising piece of these projects. Charlie really is sort of the brains behind the building piece of it. He's going to kind of give the timelines and that sort of stuff. So we have some great opportunities before us. The first one is one that's coming up very shortly. It is the new learning villas. We're looking at 4 additional learning villas. These are necessary. These are very important for the school now and for the next school year. They're necessary. We're taking on an additional grade this year. We're also going to grow some classes, and the teachers need some additional workspace. So this is just a gotta-have, must-have. Financial need there is $190,000, and we're looking for that money by April 30th. And we have done some of that work, and I'll come back to that later at the end of the slides, kind of how we're going to close that gap. But that's our first need. Charlie, do you want to talk a little bit about the timeline and the construction and all of the other slides?
Can we do that now?
Yes.
Well, before I get into a timeline discussion, I would just like to correct an image here. Nobody's ever called me the brains. If you knew my academic performance, you would never. But I would like to share with you, before I get into any details, how I got involved in helping start and grow faith-based schools. First one was Trinity Episcopal School in Palisades, and now we have a few more in the works. A high school that will be starting out at Johnson C. Smith in 2012. And through the vision of Marty McCarthy, who is rector at St. John's Episcopal Church, that's where this all began. But my involvement started back about 1972 and 3 when I was living in Tampa, Florida. And we had 3 children that were not really doing too well in the public school system, and so we decided we really needed to find an opportunity for them to grow both in their faith and in their knowledge and learning, and we found a wonderful parish school called St. John's Episcopal School. It was a parish school, working out of their parish facilities. And fortunately it had a reputation as being one of the best academic schools in the Tampa community. But our children went there for 3 and 4 years while we were living in that area. And they did very well academically, but more importantly, they really reaffirmed their faith, the faith that they were building in our family. But they found, by being part of that faith community, their commitment and their faith grew tremendously. And it continued on through the rest of their lives. My son is almost 48 years old, my oldest of the 3, and then I have a 45-year-old and a 42-year-old, 6 grandchildren. So they are very much committed in their faith, and the reason being, I'm confident, was that experience they had, not only at home, but that experience that they had by being able to go to a faith-based institution. And that was really what caused me to want to try to give back, and got involved with Trinity and now with Palisades and others that are emerging today. I think that God has really been watching over this particular facility here. The ability for us to have been able to engage with Jim Medall through Marty McCarthy's contacts and relationships, for Jim to have given us, what, 37, 38, 32. How many was it? 32 acres of land for nothing. I mean, no investment on our part, for our ability to trade that land for this building, and a total of 9+ acres is absolutely phenomenal. And we have incurred some debt, but that debt is debt that we can fund, and we can pay the interest on it, and eventually be able to pay back that principal. So I'm persuaded we didn't get here by ourselves. We've had some very much supernatural involvement to have allowed us to come to this point, and to have a school with 143 children and with families that are involved and supportive to help us provide the necessary financial support for this program. So, with that, let me give you a few details. Karen and I went up to Iredell County last December, I think it was, Karen, and we had been told Karen had been told of an opportunity to buy some classroom units. And there were some individual classroom units, and there were 2 units that had 4 classrooms under one roof, which we call a quad. It's 4 classrooms and then a central corridor. And so Karen and I looked at these buildings, and we saw that there could be some real benefit by having 4 classrooms under one roof with a common corridor. And there was one unit that was in better shape than the other. These units were built like in 2003, so they had 7, 8, 9 years of aging on them. But the one we liked was in good shape, good condition, and these units can be broken down, which they have been, and they've been moved to a separate location. And we could basically buy that quad unit for about $35,000. That was $25,000 for the unit, another $10,000 to have it broken down and moved and stored up in Iredell County. This was owned by the Iredell Statesville school system, public school system.